So good evening, Daniel,
Evening.
and thanks so much for giving the time, being willing to talk to me. As we discussed, we're doing this interview just to kind of learn from your experience for this global health course on management of global health. So we were here together. The context, we met because we're here at this WHO UNICEF meeting on institutionalizing integrated community case management, and we were in the same working group, which was a lot of fun. And one thing that struck me is that you said and expressed very clearly, and then had opinions to share about that the fact that you work for the government, but you don't work for the Ministry of Health, which in global health we have so many. I think pretty much everywhere else here, people are Ministry of Health or NGOs or UN, WHO. So I wanted to ask you first to start to tell us where you work and what is your general responsibility in that work.
Thank you. I work for the Ministry of Territorial Administration and State Reform. The ministry is responsible for setting policy regarding local government, land, and territorial administration. We are talking about human settlement, political and administrative subdivision, and so on. So the ministry is quite strategic right now because it has also taken the responsibility to reform the states. So the reform has been articulated in various dimensions. Which one? The first one, the other one is actually promoting local elected governance. So the ministry in 2015 developed a strategic plan. So it's called National Strategic Plan for Local and Territorial Administration. So the strategic plan includes one of the strategic objective, sustainable human settlement. So Angola is, the total what they call it, superficie dimension of the country is 1 million and something, 1,235 square kilometer, and then the population is about 30 million. So the country is not evenly populated. So you have 1/3 of the country is not populated. So you have the population concentrated on the sea coast, and then you have the rest of the country quite void because of rural migration, economic migration, the whole history of war and something like this. So you have the majority, the great part of the country is not, we don't have the population. That where you have resources, you have resources. So the ministry has taken this responsibility to promote a sustainable way of using space, of people settling. So one of them is to make sure that local communities and then their local administration, local government are sustainable as well. So we are talking about institutionally speaking, but also we are talking about socially and economically speaking. So the whole agenda of curbing rural exodus, encouraging people, retention of people in remote areas, even small town which are very remote from big town. So it's about making sure that people can live where they are. So one of the key program is that I'm running. I'm the national coordinator of the human settlement and local community sustainable program. So this program is supporting the Ministry of Health to promote sustainable provision of health services in a sustainable way. So to make sure that people can have access in a sustainable to quality services where they are. So, and then one of the joint initiative is actually creating the creation and then training and retention of community health workers. But in our context, since we are talking about promoting sustainable settlement, it's not only about the community development workers as kind of got a holistic mandate. So it's not only about addressing health issues, but also all the other determinants. So we are about the social and cultural determinant to health problems. So this is exactly why we are actually part of this initiative, making sure that at local levels, which is actually the district or the lower level, you have those community health workers, which has got a much more broader, wider responsibility rather than just addressing health issues. So they end up becoming the kind of an entry point for the provision of other services. But having health indicators as actually the target, and then also where the point where we should measure their impact in terms of what is the impact they really have at the community. So this is exactly our responsibility in the ministry.
Okay. So it's fascinating to me because in other places that I've worked, I've seen this importance of the role of local government, and working with the Ministry of Health. But here you're really, what you're describing is really a leadership role taken by local government. And certainly in our group, your voice was very clear in explaining how that role was going to be taken. And I know that you have broad experience, and you speak so many languages and stuff.
Yeah.
But so my question to you is, in the relationship that the local government, that your ministry has with the Ministry of Health, or at the local level with the departments of health, do you think you're within the kind of the normal distribution of the relationships between non-health and health sectors, or do you think like you're a bit of a pioneer? Do you think you're a bit outside of the bell-shaped distribution? How does you're not speaking for the ministry, you're speaking from your experience, but
Sure.
your experience of different countries also. Do you think that there's a little bit of an exception to how you're working in Angola, or does it reflect what you're seeing with your peers and your colleagues in other countries?
Wow. Okay. I think it's a pioneer, no, but I think we have kind of similar experiences in countries, in some neighboring country like in Namibia. In Namibia, you have kind of a similar approach, whereby the Ministry of Land and Land Reform and Agricultural Land Reform and local government play this kind of a leadership role. So I think I don't think that we're influenced by the Namibian. So we end up knowing that they have got a similar approach after that. But in our context, I think, yes, if you see other Portuguese-speaking countries, we are maybe a pioneer. Why? Because I think we end up, if you read the reports, for example, the multiple indicator survey, you will see that other sectors, the failures and inefficiencies and even gaps in the way other sectors operate or deliver their services or don't deliver their services, directly impact on health. And one of the sector that's actually the contributor to the health problem is water and sanitation. Water and sanitation. So water and sanitation accounts for actually most of the principal problem that we have in health, principally malaria. So we are talking about spill water and then even rainwater is not being drained. So creating potholes, and then which become actually the source of creation of and multiplication of mosquito. So you have this kind of issue. So you don't have sanitation, you don't have safe water. So you have the two principal diseases that account for those kind of appalling statistics in child mortality. So we're talking about diarrhea and malaria, which actually derived from poor sanitation. So and the sanitation, if you see water and principally sanitation, is not a kind of a clear responsibility of whether the Ministry of or Department of Water. It's not responsibility of Department of Infrastructure. It's not the responsibility of Department of Health. So it's actually a sector or an area of activity of responsibility which has to be taken care of. Otherwise, then you have health problems. So then you have issue of culture. You have issue of culture. Parents don't take children to vaccination because they believe they have got some traditional or cultural behaviors that are barriers to use, access, and utilize health services even where they exist. So it's even in areas and location where you have quality services, available services, but the population don't adhere. They don't use the services because of some negative cultural or social practices. So if you account, if you make a stock of all other issues that have to be taken care by different sectors, then you end up, and then that at the end of the day create health problems. So we have areas, for example, which are not very far from Luanda, which in the north and northeast part of Angola. So you have water, you have the climate. You don't need. You have the soil is so fertile. You don't need fertilizer. You have humidity, and then that's allowed, and then heat that's allowed to cultivate the entire year. But these are the areas where you have a high rate of malnutrition because people they only grow cassava and banana, for example. They don't grow vegetables, and they don't rear livestock. So you, and then how can you explain that, okay, in an area whereby you should not actually, it's not logical that you should have the amount of nutrition, because people traditionally they don't. So you have some social and cultural determinant of health problems. That's why actually people at the end of the day consider or treat or have an impression that, okay, in some area it's not fit, it's not interesting to live there because of this kind of accumulated problem. So we have taken this kind of leadership role to join forces to enhance health problem as a result from failures and deficient planning and investment, inefficient in investment sometimes, and then planning and operationalizing project in the other sectors. Then come to the conclusion that okay, it has to be the entity that should play the role of bringing other sector on board to solve the health problem. So which are talking about the mayor or the administrator or the governor, and then at national level should be the ministry to engage with leadership at the territorial level to start viewing health problems as a result of other sectors. So this is actually how we came up with this kind of a leadership vision or role, to bring other. We have a theory, we call it a funnel approach to solve health issues. So the funnel, it's funnel, is it?
Very funnel, yeah.
Exactly. So the local government, local administration has to make sure the other sector intervene, play their parts, so that we solve the issues or the problems of health at a certain territorial level.
That's fascinating to have such a good description of public health challenge, addressing the public health challenge through sustainable development and kind of local human planning. I mean, that's fantastic to hear. So let me ask, to get into kind of some of the nitty gritty, so you're bringing different tech stakeholders, different agencies, different sectors, different ministries. You've named so many already. So on a day-to-day, what are the management tools that you're going to use to do that? And I mean, very practically, is that meeting people? Is that, developing regulation? Is it, getting experts? Is it, writing plans? Is it monitoring what information? What are the key tools that allow you to advance this work?
The first one is data collection. We believe, and I think that we have proved it to be right, is information, data. I was really happy I read somewhere, I don't know if it's in our group, I think it's in our group, exchanging data. So this approach or this vision of ours of public health, can't work if each sector collects its own data and manage its own data separately. Even the same data that are useful to other sectors. So the first aspect is we make sure that we collect necessary, relevant, and share data and information. The first one is demography. So if every different sector want to serve the same community, so they should have the same set of information, the same set of knowledge of the subset or the community or the individual that they want to serve. So everyone has to understand, even if it's an individual. So you have to know properly what kind of individual we're talking about. If someone who is a vulnerable person, so his level of vulnerability has to be understood by all the sector, so that also the intervention or the project or whatsoever, the policy to address whether it's the problem, whether it's vision, whether the potential, the opportunity that is understood. So the first two is data management. So collecting information, analyzing information, and then storing information and sharing it. So this is the first tool, and that's where actually we became, as the Ministry of Land of Territorial Administration, he became actually the advocate of the community health workers because they are there in those communities where we want to know what is the situation, how many people are there, how many children, how many under 5 children, who was born yesterday that need vaccination. So it's not the governor, it's not the head of the local planning department or the nurse or the doctor who knows, but it's that community worker that knows who was born yesterday, who died yesterday. So building the capacity, empowering, providing the appropriate tools and skill to this community health worker, so you increase the capacity to collect reliable information, and then have sure that this information is collected properly using the proper guidelines from different or respective institutions, and then it's being stored, and then it's being shared to different institutions for different purposes. So I think that this is actually one of them, the first aspect. The second one, having proper information. The second two management pool is, we are Portuguese-speaking countries are very formal societies. So you have laws and legislation for everything. So I don't think that this is something that you don't have, which is not regulated. But we miss the pragmatism from English-speaking countries. So you have operational manuals, guidelines. How do we implement the law? How do we translate the law, the legislation into operative plans? So the second tool is actually the development of operational manuals, guidelines for planning, principally for planning, for monitoring and evaluation, so things like supervision or something like this, and then budgeting.
That's fascinating. And you described all these partners that you have to engage, that you use the data with, these different sectors, these different departments, and but if you sit at a ministry level, you're pretty far away from these community health workers, and they provide you this day-to-day information that you need. So I had two questions. Was just one clarification. As these community health workers in Angola, sorry, I don't know, are they volunteers or do they get a remuneration?
They are remunerated. The first thing that we did actually at the ministry level, what we did actually is to promote the policy. It's actually called the national policy for community development and health agent, ADECOS. So we promoted that the legislation that permit or allow to mobilize public resources, which are transferred to local government. So under this legislation, so we can have the budget is being allocated and then transferred to local government to pay an incentive, a monthly incentive, which is actually equal to the minimum wage.
Okay, well that's more than an incentive; it's a salary.
Yeah.
So that's great. So the other thing, so I like that you talked about these levers, these tools, the information, the data collection, the sharing, and then the operational guidelines, and that kind of the budgetary elements, having to have a workforce that's compensated. Another way to look at management problems is to look at relationships, the institutional. I mean, you could look at the individual level, but let's look at the individual relationships. If you had to draw a little map, we're not going to do a mapping exercise, but if you have to draw a little map of the partners and the structures that help you with the data collection, with the making sense, with the data sharing, to help you to kind of get to your objectives and goals, what would be like the 2, 3, 4 big partners that are there that you have to interact with to make your ambitions succeed?
Well, in terms of the ministry, we big partners. I don't think that we have. The partner that we are mobilizing actually, so we are mobilizing them to support the Ministry of Health. Support the Ministry of Health, because the Ministry of Territorial Administration has got a very strong leverage on the other subsystems. So we are talking the government, the provincial government, and the local government. So you have got a very strong leverage, and our part is quite clear. So we are playing a catalyst role, to make sure that at different level, the vision is there. So the vision is understood that we have to make sure that we bring to the local level. When we're talking about the local, we are talking about the program that we are talking about. It's community. So we are talking about community, and the community is under the directive, the local agent directive, it can be reduced to a subset of up to 20 households in area where you have a demographic density of less than 2 inhabitants per kilometer square. We have areas of 2 provinces where you can have municipalities or district of that kind of demography. The subset, which is a community, can be as small as 20 households, and then you have a community agent. And then as you come close to urban areas, big cities, so you have the suburbs and so on, the peri-urban area where you can have up to 22,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. So the community can be as small as that. So the vision is there. The vision of behind the strategy is that you have to see that subset of the territory, which is 220 household, has to have enough incentive, to remain there. And I think this is where we have to live, and then we feel okay, and then we have this even if it's just a perception that we have been taken care of. We are known. The governor, the administrator, or the local, the mayor, he knows about our existence. We exist. How are we? How many are we? How do we live? And then there is that kind of an effort, the message that the service has to. We are taking care, and we are concerned that the service has to reach you. This is actually our role. So far, our partners, whether they were Global Fund, whether the USAID, whether other local network with whom we have signed the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which is part of my task actually. Part of my task, and then we have a platform, national platform, and then a secretariat that we meet. It's actually most of them actually taking advantage of the existence of the policy that create an opportunity for them to intervene and then better support the Ministry of Health and then other ministries, like the Ministry of Justice.
Thank you. That's really fascinating. I've taken a lot of your time, so I just wanted to conclude. We could continue talking for hours. I feel I'm learning stuff.
Sure.
But so my last 2 questions, no, not my last 2 questions. My last question is, so this video is going to go to students, in this Masters in Global Health. And I'm wondering, you're a practitioner, you're somebody who's making things happen at the government level, working with all these partners. If you were to give 2 keywords or 2 big principles to people that that want to be managers, that want to be influencers, that want to change things in global health, what would be these key, big ideas, principles, or even keywords that you would want to leave with them?
One of them is innovation. I think we should be innovative. Challenging paradigm.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did, is to challenge the it's paradigm or paradigm?
Paradigm.
Okay.
Yeah, Americans say paradigm.
Okay, the paradigm. We are not specialists, and then we are not in the ministry that's actually, even from, it's from really very far. We should be, taking this kind of health jacket. People don't understand us, and then sometimes we tend to, to be so health concerned than people from the Ministry of Health themselves. So sometimes you are taking the space of someone else. So I think for me, it's innovation. So managing means also, allow that, we should challenge some of the way the routine, the existing routine, the way of doing things, business as usual, and which can be, for example, in our area of territorial administration or local government, we can easily accommodate ourselves in the existing laws and then the legislation. So this is, for me, I think innovation is something really important that you have to be taken into consideration. The second one, as a big principle, is it's not actually new. You have to think global and then act locally. So you have to make sure that you create avenues to make things work and happen and be sustained locally.
Yeah. That's a big lesson. That's a lot of work. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for giving this time.
Thank you, me too, for
the
opportunity. I hope that I've laid a small stone to this infrastructure that you are building. I have a management background. Yes, management background. So I'm happy and I'm wishing all the best. I hope that your project will be successful, and then future generation will benefit from that.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks, Daniel.
Welcome.